Good afternoon, everybody. Welcome. Thank you for joining us today for the June 2023 SBIF District Rollout. We'll get started in just a moment here. For all of our participants today, know that you will be receiving a copy of this presentation via email. You can also rewatch it again on DPD's YouTube page. If you have any questions during this conversation, feel free to put them in the Q&A box on the top of your screen. And again, we'll get started in just one moment. Again, good afternoon, everyone. My name is Kim Brisky. I'm the Director of Communications with Summer Corps, the administrator of the SBIF program on behalf of the Department of Planning and Development. Thank you so much for joining us for the June 2023 SBIF District Rollout. If you have any questions during today's presentation, feel free to put them in the Q&A chat box. Additionally, everybody on this call is going to be receiving a copy of this presentation via email. And to get the conversation started today, I'm actually going to turn it over to Fareed Muhammad with DPD to give us some introductory remarks. Fareed? Oops, Fareed, you're muted.
It's not a Zoom meeting if that doesn't happen, right? Good afternoon, and thank you, Kim. Thank you for your participation today. My name is Fareed Muhammad, and I work with the SBIF team at the Department of Planning and Development. A representative from the city's SBIF administrator, Summer Corps, will be making our presentation today. The Small Business Improvement Fund, commonly known as SBIF, provides grants to small businesses and property owners to make needed improvements to their property. Over the last few years, we have made a lot of exciting changes to SBIF. We increased the maximum grant to $150K and the possible reimbursement up to 90% of project costs for commercial projects. We have also doubled the amount of funding available citywide. Since 2020, City Council has authorized over $100 million in new funding for SBIF rollouts in 65 TIFs across Chicago. In addition to the available funding, SBIF offers technical assistance from Summer Corps in your local delegate agency. When you submit your application, you will be assigned a Summer Corps project manager. That person is there to help you through the SBIF process. If you run into issues that are going to delay your project and make you miss your deadline, call your Summer Corps project manager immediately. They may be able to help you solve the problem. Another great resource is your local delegate agency, your local Chamber of Commerce or Community Development Corporation. Later in the presentation, a list of your local chambers and community development organizations will be provided. Again, they are here to help you. They often can help with the SBIF application or with things like introductions to local lenders in the city permit process. We are all here to support your application because we want to see your business and your neighborhoods flourish. With that, I'm happy to introduce Sylvia, the SBIF Director for Summer Corps.
Thank you, Fareed, and thank you all for joining us today. As he mentioned, my name is Silvia Orozco. I am the director of the SBIF program. I work for Summer Corps. We are a non-for-profit organization, small business lender that offers SBA loans. We administer the Neighborhood Opportunity Fund program, as well as the SBIF program. For over 17 years, I've assisted hundreds of existing businesses, landlords, and also startup businesses utilize SBIF funds to renovate their buildings. Now in its 23rd year, SBIF is one of the most successful and longest running programs of the city of Chicago. We've helped retain and expand small businesses in nearly every neighborhood of the city. We've dispersed over $118 million, excuse me, in grants to over 1,900 businesses across the city of Chicago. Please be advised that this is a non-residential program. The grant cannot be used for capital or operating expenses. It is specifically for infrastructure repairs. Again, thank you all for joining us today. We'll go ahead and get started with the presentation. So today we will go over what is SBIF, our program mission and grant parameters. How do you get started? Is your business or property in a SBIF district? Which SBIF districts are open or on deck? What are the SBIF program rules? How do you apply and what is the program timeline? And also what resources are available to you. We'll go over the list of districts that are open for this month, as well as a sample project. We'll have SBIF facts and additional question and answer session at the end. Launched in 1999, the City of Chicago's Small Business Improvement Fund promotes economic development by providing small businesses and landlords with reimbursable grants for permanent building improvement cost. Residential projects are not eligible. SBIF uses local tax increment financing revenue to reimburse grantees for the pre-approved repair or rehab of their business facilities or adjacent land acquisition. SummerCore is the program administrator. We're contracted by the city's Department of Planning and Development to administer the program. Eligible applicants. The property must be in a TIF district where the SBIF funds are available and the SBIF is authorized to accept applications. Landlords of either commercial or industrial properties qualify, as well as business owners of commercial or industrial businesses who either own or lease their place of business. Tenants with written prior approval from the property owner can apply, as well as startups. Startups are eligible. We do require a business plan, and a current City of Chicago business license is required before final disbursement of funds. We'll go over the eligibility limits. So for commercial tenants or owner-occupied applicants, your gross sales on average must be less than $9 million per year to qualify for SBIF. For landlords of commercial or industrial businesses, $9 million in cumulative net worth is required amongst all owners, and also $500,000 liquid cap per individual. Industrial tenants or owner-occupied businesses, they must have 200 or fewer full-time employees. All owner-occupied properties are subject to both tenants and landlord requirements. Just one moment here. Hi, Kim.
Yes,
Can we move on to the next slide, please?
it should be. Can you see the maximum grant amount allowed under SBIF?
Yes.
Okay.
Okay, here we go. The maximum grant allowed under SBIF is $250,000 maximum per industrial property, $150,000 maximum per single owner or tenant of a commercial property or landlord. $250,000 is the maximum that may be granted per multiple owner or tenant of a commercial property, with $75,000 being the maximum assistance per tenant or landlord. Applicants may receive one or more grants up to their maximum program assistance. Once this maximum is reached, the applicants will need to wait 3 years to reapply. The percent of eligible project cost that can be reimbursed for commercial businesses is up to 90% of eligible cost if your sales or net worth fall between $0 to $3 million. If they fall between 3 to 6 million, you'd qualify for 60% of reimbursement of eligible cost. And if your sales or net worth fall between 6 to 9 million, you'd qualify for 30% reimbursement. All industrial projects qualify for 50% of eligible cost. Here we have a SBIF grant calculation example. Let's say that Grace submits an application for a SBIF grant in an open district with a total eligible project cost of $100,000. She's proposing to make permanent building improvements to her existing retail shop, for which she is a tenant. Grace has been in business for 5 years. Over the last 3 years, her gross sales averaged $1.5 million. Here we have a breakout of her eligible cost. Total project costs are at $100,000. As a commercial tenant applicant with gross sales under $3 million, she qualifies for a 90% SBIF grant reimbursement. The city's responsibility at 90% is $90,000, and that leaves the applicant's responsibility at 10% at $10,000. Keeping in mind that this is a reimbursement grant and financing must be available upfront to fully finance the project. We'll get into that a little bit further. Is your business or property in a SBIF district? In order to determine that, you can visit our website, summercore.com/SBIF, to see if your property is in a district. Once you get to this page, you can click here on number 1 to confirm if your business is in a SBIF area. Once you get to this page, it's going to take you to the SBIF locator tool where you will enter the address. Once you enter that address there, it's going to give you specific information for that property, which is going to include the name of the TIF district if it's located in a TIF. It also gives you the delegate agent's contact information, as well as a calendar notification to let you know when that district is scheduled to open to accept applications. It also will let you know whether or not the property falls within an Invest Southwest area or a SBIF target corridor. Which districts are open or on deck? Eligible SBIF districts in Chicago span neighborhoods on the north, south, and west sides. Each month marks a new 30-day period in which SBIF districts with available funds open for applications. Notice of districts openings are provided to relevant aldermen, posted on DPD and SummerCore's websites, and included in the SBIF grant. You can visit our website for the most up-to-date list of open and on-deck districts. What are the SBIF program rules? What business and organization types are ineligible to apply? Some of the businesses that don't qualify for SBIF include chain and franchise businesses, places of worship, adult use, liquor stores, nightclubs, things of this sort. It's not a comprehensive list, so if you're not sure, you can always reach out directly to us and we'll let you know whether or not the business qualifies. What improvement costs are eligible for SBIF? We can cover roofing and facade renovations, components of signs or awnings which are permanently affixed to the building, alterations or structures needed for ADA compliance, such as railings or ramps, ADA compliance restrooms, things of that sort, HVAC systems and other mechanical systems, plumbing and electrical work, certain project-related architectural and construction management fees that are related to the project can also be reimbursed. Certain environmental remediation measures, permanent interior renovations, including fixtures, and the purchase of adjacent land parcels for purposes of expansion or parking. Again, this list is not comprehensive. If you had something in mind and you're not sure if we can cover it, feel free to reach out and we'll advise further. What improvement costs are ineligible for SBIF? We do not cover new construction, whether it's an addition or expansion from the ground up or expansions to the rear. Standalone minor repairs or cosmetic improvements are not eligible. If they're part of a larger project, then we could definitely cover those items. Equipment-related expenses such as kitchen appliances, computers, and office furniture. There are very few exceptions for commercial kitchens and restaurants where we can cover walk-in coolers and freezers, exhaust hoods, and also fire suppression systems. Other items that are not SBIF eligible include planters that are surrounding or affixed to the buildings, outdoor dining or drinking areas, including roof decks, beer gardens, outdoor patios, balconies, awnings, porches, and decks. Also not covered, including fencing, pergolas, trellises, privacy screens, and similar structures such as those. Parking lot construction or repair, landscaping, and work on interior residential units are not SBIF eligible. What are these SBIF design requirements? In order to receive funding, the projects must conform to design requirements, including DPD's design guidelines. Projects shall comply with design guidelines and additional neighborhood requirements as described in the guidelines, style guides, community plans, and other planning documents that are associated with the TIF area and the neighborhood in which the property is located. Applicants are strongly advised to consult with Summer Corps and design professionals on design requirements and guidelines before drawing plans up for your work. All applicants for commercial properties who are approved for a grant of $25,000 or greater shall be required to make at least one exterior improvement using at least 10% of the maximum amount of their approved grants, including but not limited to facade repairs, windows and doors, and other exterior improvements that are eligible and subject to DPD's approval. This requirement can be waived at DPD's sole discretion if the applicant can demonstrate to DPD's satisfaction that no exterior improvements are needed because the improvements have been recently completed or the exterior features of the building have been well maintained and are consistent with the guidelines. What measures are in place to ensure the applicant compliance with the program rules? Checks will be performed on all applicants during the approval stage to ensure that they are current on property taxes, complying with child support laws, and not indebted to the city. Any scofflaw debt cleared with the City of Chicago via a payment plan must be in compliance before any reimbursement will be made for eligible costs incurred. Additionally, all applicants must be current on property taxes prior to any reimbursement. Each applicant will be required to sign an economic disclosure affidavit. Grantees will be required to sign an affidavit certifying that they will not relocate out of the TIF district or sell the business within a 3-year period following disbursement of funds. In cases of reimbursement for land purchase, proof of land ownership will be required before reimbursement may be made. How do you apply? You can download a copy of the SBIF application at our website, summercorps.com/SBIF. To apply, you must complete the application and email it to our general inbox at spiff@summercorps.com within the designated open acceptance period. What is the SBIF program timeline? In stage 1, the applicant eligibility is reviewed. The applicants must supply any missing information to complete their application. They're granted up to 20 days to submit their application materials. If deemed eligible, they will proceed to stage 2. This is the planning phase where applicants are required to submit their plans, bids, and specifications. If any debts are owed to the City of Chicago, they must be resolved at this time. Please note that stage 1 and 2 must be completed before final review and project approval by TPD. If approved, you will receive your conditional commitment letter signaling that you're able to begin construction. In stage 3, this is the project construction phase. You're granted up to 10 months to complete the construction. Within this time frame, the proof of permit or permit application, which is concurrent with the 10-month construction phase, must be completed within 120 days following the date of the commitment letter. This means the permit must be issued or it must be submitted and paid for to be processed by the City of Chicago. Once that requirement is met, another requirement would be the proof of financing. The applicant is required to provide proof of sufficient funds to complete the project. Again, up to 120 days following the date of the commitment letter, the applicant must prove that they currently have sufficient equity to complete the project. You must have at least 50% of the funds needed to cover the total project cost at this point. Stage 4 is the reimbursement phase. Once the work is completed and we receive the payment documentation as required, processing usually takes about 4 to 6 weeks until you receive your reimbursement from the city. Unless DPD has granted an extension of time, applicants who do not complete each stage within the required phase time limit will be disqualified. A maximum of 2 extensions may be granted with DPD's approval in the case of unavoidable delay due to extraordinary circumstances. DPD may also, on a case-by-case basis, grant an eligible application an additional amount of time to complete any program requirement. In such case, DPD shall have discretion to determine the appropriate length of the extension. What is required to deem a project completed and receive grant funds? We require proof of payment documentation for review, including a sworn statement, invoices, canceled checks, and final waivers of lien. Summer Corps completes a final site visit to document the completion of the work, where you are required to submit a copy of your building permits, and within 4 to 6 weeks, the grant payment will be received via check. What resources are available to help? You can visit our website to access resources available to support your SBIF project. Here we have the SBIF design guidelines. We have a list of lenders that are familiar with the SBIF program. You can always reach out to these lenders. They are familiar with the SBIF program, and we can also sign a bank assignment so that the proceeds of the grant go directly to the lender to pay off a portion of their loan, of your loan. We have a list of contractors that have worked with previous SBIF recipients, as well as a list of City of Chicago licensed contractors. There's a technical assistance provider list, as well as additional small business resources. Get to know your local delegate agency. These organizations are assigned to assist small business owners in the SBIF districts opening in June. So you can reach out directly to these organizations. They are familiar with the SBIF program. They are here to assist you, whether it's getting started with the process, emailing paperwork over to us, getting things organized. Feel free to reach out to these organizations, specifically based on your location. June rollout information. So for this month of June, we are now accepting applications for the following districts, including Cicero and Archer, Division and Holman, the Inglewood neighborhood, Ewing Avenue, Greater Southwest Industrial West, and Washington Park. You can submit the application via email to sbif@summercorps.com. Please allow 2 business days for Summer Corps to confirm receipt of your application via an email response. If you do not receive an email confirmation within this time, please send the follow-up message or call the main line at 312-360-3300. Applicants are responsible for making sure submissions are received within the open acceptance period. So we are currently accepting applications through June 30th at 5 p.m. That is the strict deadline. Here we have a sample project that was out in the Division and Holman TIF district. This is Midwest Feds Corporation. They've utilized the SBIF program quite a few times over the years. They are located at 3233 West Grand Avenue. Here are some of the after pictures once the work was completed. Some of the work that was covered includes installation of 4 new double pane sliding windows on the front of the facade, a new roofing system, including skylights, gutters and downspouts, as well as installation of overhead doors and HVAC systems, concrete flooring, additional truss repairs, concrete repairs, security system, and lighting upgrades. These projects are currently in progress, but this just gives you sort of an idea of what we can cover with the SBIF program. What additional documents should you have on hand to submit along with the application? While it's not required when submitting the initial application form, please note that these items are required to complete the application process. The required documents do vary depending on applicant type. Some of these items, such as the tax returns, your City of Chicago business license, proof of ownership, lease agreements, you will have these items on hand. Some of these required items, we will provide the templates for you, and you can then submit these documents as they're requested. What are the financial requirements to participate in the SBIF program? The SBIF program is a reimbursable grant, so project participants should be prepared with financing to support the permanent building improvements. Proof of financing is not required until stage 3, but applicants are encouraged to contact their business lender or reach out to one of the lenders listed on the Summer Corps website in a timely manner. Grantees may choose to complete their project in phases rather than requiring 100% of the upfront costs of the project. Applicants will receive an approval for the full scope of work, and the construction will be completed based on necessity and contractors' recommendations. The phase disbursements will be based on progress or completion of eligible construction work. For example, an applicant approved to complete a roof tear-off, HVAC system upgrades, and installation of a new storefront under one application can complete the work in phases. Once the roof improvements are complete and the paperwork submitted to Summer Corps, the applicant can be reimbursed for that work, then use those funds to address the HVAC upgrades. They can repeat this process to be reimbursed for that and then use the funds for the storefront upgrades. Program facts: are startups or new businesses eligible? Yes, most startups can apply. Startup applicants will need to supply a detailed business plan and projections of the business's income and expenses for its first 36 months of operation as part of their application materials. The city reserves the right to impose additional conditions for funding in connection with startup business applications. If you've only been in business for 1 to 2 years, Summer Corps requires tax returns and a projection of gross sales to equal 3 years of data. Please note that bars, taverns, hotels, and motel applicants must have held their applicable license and been in business for at least 1 calendar year. Are you eligible if you live outside of Chicago? The important consideration is where you have your business or your property. To participate in SBIF, your property must be in the city of Chicago, as the funding source comes from the city's property taxes. If you live in another area, please call your city's planning, economic development, or community development department to see what other programs may be available to assist small businesses in your area. What if my building has both business and residential spaces? This program is primarily for business use, but there are mixed use exceptions. For these buildings, many envelope projects such as roofing, facade improvement, and tuck pointing can be eligible. Will there be enough SBIF funds for all applicants? Each tax increment financing district that has the SBIF program authorized in it has limited funds reserved for the program. If demand for the SBIF funds is greater than the available funding supply, then a lottery will be conducted to determine the order in which each grant application may be accommodated. If any surplus funds become available, they will be allocated to the waitlisted applicants. Applicants for a property located in an Invest Southwest corridor shall be given priority for funding and the lottery. Applicants for a property located in a target corridor shall be second in priority for the funding and the lottery. The remaining applicants in general areas of the TIF district shall be provided funding if available and placed on the wait list if applicable, after applicants in the Invest Southwest corridor and target corridors have been addressed. Can SBIF be used with other City of Chicago grant programs? The answer is no. SBIF cannot be used at the same time as the Neighborhood Opportunity Fund or the Chicago Recovery Plan grant on the same project, covering the same work. However, you may apply for multiple grants at the same time and select the best fit for your project, provided you stay within the grant timeline requirements. Is there SBIF funding available in my district? Every SBIF area has its own budget that the city refills if it has TIF funds available and if there's a demonstrated need for the grant money. We also maintain an interested parties list for funds, which you can also send an email to our general inbox at sbif@summercorps.com to join. When more funding becomes available or the city allocates more funds, we will let you know. The interested parties list also helps the city gauge demand for additional funding. What if you're in a TIF and it is not SBIF? Tax increment financing is the mechanism that funds the SBIF program. If you are in a TIF and it does not have a SBIF, please contact your alderman. Thank you all once again for joining us. Here we have the contact information for the SBIF team, as well as Nora Curry, who is the director of the SBIF program on the city side with the Department of Planning and Development. You can also visit both our websites here below. The City of Chicago's chicago.gov/SBIF website. They do have an option on the upper right-hand corner to translate the website into just about any language. So if you need it in Spanish, Korean, Vietnamese, whatever language you would like this page to be translated to, you can definitely use it as an option. So again, just keep in mind that a copy of the presentation and a link to a video will be emailed to all attendees today.
Awesome. Thank you so much, Sylvia. Just a reminder for all of our attendees right now, if you have any questions, feel free to put them in the Q&A box on the top of your screen. Sylvia, in terms of a first question, would you mind just sort of highlighting what's the number one stumbling block or challenge that you see for our applicants to this program?
So that would be the requirement of financing the project upfront. You know, as we spoke during the presentation about the proof of financing not being required until the approval phase, I always suggest, you know, as soon as you submit the application, get started with this process here. Understand your needs, understand how much funding you will need, and also, you know, keep in mind that this reimbursement is not 100%, it's up to 90%. But I always suggest that applicants start first with their lender, let them know they're participating in the program. And, you know, if that doesn't work out, they can always reach out to one of the lenders on our website to make sure that you have the financing in place. And also keep in mind that sometimes with construction, it doesn't always go as planned. There may be unforeseen issues, which may cause an increase in the initial cost of the project itself. So just be prepared for things like that.
That's really helpful. For a startup business especially, but do you already need to have a location confirmed before you apply for the SBIF program? Maybe you can talk a little bit about site control and how that impacts the grant.
Sure. So you do need to have site control in order for us to move forward with the application. So we do have the 30-day acceptance period. After that 30 days, we'll determine whether or not we need to conduct a lottery. So if we're able to proceed with your application, you then have 20 days to submit the required items, which will include proof of your site control, whether it's proof of ownership if you own the property, if you purchased it, or if it's a lease agreement, you do have to have an executed lease agreement on hand by that 20-day deadline. And the term has to be a minimum of at least 3 years. So that's actually in place to protect the applicants. You're investing in someone else's property, so we want to make sure that you are able to utilize that space for a minimum of at least 3 years.
That's helpful. And again, could you just go over requirements for new businesses? Are they eligible to apply? And if so, what are the requirements for them?
Sure, new businesses are eligible as long as their business type qualifies for SBIF. We could proceed with their application. They do need to have a business plan, including projections of income and expenses for the next 36 months. And also the space must be licensed to operate your business prior to final disbursement.
And for tenants that are applying, do you need some type of approval from the landlord to participate in this program?
Yes, we do have a form that needs to be completed by the landlord. It does need to be fully completed, listing the items that they give you approval to change on their building, and this form does need to be notarized. So that is something that will be provided to you.
Let's see. And so again, I'm trying to, there's somebody who had several questions here. So in terms of the construction period, how long again is that as part of the SBIF program? What were the parameters for the construction period?
So once you're granted an approval, you're granted 10 months to complete the construction. Keeping in mind that there are 2 deadlines. Within 120 days of receiving your approval, you are required to submit your proof of financing. You have to show that you have at least 50% of the total cost of the project available to you, and also either have your permit already issued or your permit must be submitted to the city. Permit application should be in progress at that point.
So for the general application, when you're outlining how much money that you're going to request, do you actually just automatically request the maximum? Do you do it based on estimates of your work? Can you talk a little bit about that?
Sure. So on the application, we basically ask you what it is that you're looking to do. I always tell applicants, think about your necessities, think about, a wish list on things that you would love to change. Let's say you want to change your layout of the space for better functionality, things like that. I always tell applicants to estimate on the higher end. So we do not require contractors' estimates at that point, but, just a ballpark range of how much you think it's going to cost. Since there's been increased cost overall with everything, I suggest to estimate on the higher end. If we have to conduct a lottery, you may be tied to that estimated amount. So just advise to give a higher estimate.
But formal bids and drawings, those are not required at the time of the general application?
Not required at the time of general application. If it is deemed eligible, the second stage would be where you would be required to submit official contractor information.
Great. In terms of the lenders that are on the SBIF resource page, is there any difference between those lenders and any other lender? Is there a preference for using them?
No, absolutely not. No preference. Like I said, I always tell people to start off with their lender since they've already have an established relationship with them. If for some reason it doesn't work out, they can always go to one of the lenders that are on our websites. They have worked with SBIF recipients in the past. They understand the program, and they're also more inclined to lend on the basis knowing that they will get at least a portion of their loan proceeds. The grants will go directly to pay off a portion of the loan.
Okay. And again, are nonprofits eligible to participate in the SBIF program? And do they actually need to be operating at the time to apply and to be eligible to receive funding?
Nonprofits are eligible. They do not have to be in operation at the time of application. They can be considered a startup.
That's helpful. I had a question. Somebody was asking if they were in Invest Southwest, who could help them with their application. My encouragement to this person who asked that question is to use the SBIF locator tool to find out exactly which SBIF district you are in. And that page will also, I'm going to flip back over here, it will tell you also who your delegate agency is and actually how to contact them. So that should be able to assist you there. Looking at the questions, I don't think we have any others right now. So I just wanted to say thank you so much for everybody joining us today. Again, you'll be receiving a copy of this presentation via email and a link to rewatch the video. And again, the deadline is June 30th at 5 p.m. to submit your applications. We look forward to seeing them. Thank you so much.
Thank you.